Right. So, in the last session, we were discussing about the concept of expressions, where we had seen that we can use expressions in place of operands, and these expressions can actually be made up of either different constants or user-defined symbols, or maybe special terms. So, when it comes to special terms, we know that we are supposed to use only star. Star is basically the current value of location counter, and of course, the constants and user-defined symbols can also be used. But when it comes to the constants and user-defined symbols, especially the user-defined symbol, because constants are basically values. Like for example, here max length equated to 1000. So this is an expression, and of course this is a constant. So directly the value has been specified. So max length would be evaluated to 1000 or equated to 1000. But when it comes to user-defined symbols or labels that are present in the program, we have a issue, right? So the issue is that most of the time, these symbols are relative to the program. Okay, so obviously their value is going to change with regard to the program. So obviously we need to differentiate between different types of terms that are actually used. So accordingly, we will differentiate the terms into two types. One of them is called as the relative term, okay, and other one is called as the absolute term. So what's a relative term? A relative term is one which actually changes with the program. Okay, like for example, any label that you have used, of course, the value for that particular label is assigned with regard to the start of the program. So obviously, they are going to change. If the start of the program changes, so does their value. So those type of terms are actually called as relative terms. And other term that we are going to consider is called as an absolute term, which does not change over time. Okay, even with the start of the program, they remain same. So most of the constants are actually absolute terms. So most of the labels or symbols that you are using in your expression or in your program, they are all relative terms. So accordingly, we can differentiate expressions into two types. We had seen either we can have a relative expression or we can have a absolute expression. So what do you mean by a relative expression? One that is actually formed, or one that is made up of absolute terms, or if it is made up of relative terms, then it has to follow this particular strategy. That is, it has to have relative terms in pairs, and they have to be of opposite signs. Okay, so this is one rule that is followed to form an absolute expression, so that it gives an absolute value. That's it. Okay, like for example, if the program starts at 0000, okay, and let me assume that buffend is around 4000. Sorry, buffend is 4000, and buffer starts at 3000. Okay, so if this is the case, then what is the absolute value I'll get? I'll get 1000. Okay, see, this is an absolute expression. We are saying that this is an absolute expression, right? It will give me 1000. So it should also give me 1000 even if these values change. Okay, like for example, if now my program starts at 1000. So if my program starts at 1000, obviously buffer starts at 4000, 1000 more, correct? So if buffer starts at 4000, then obviously buffer starts at 5000, 1000 more. So what's the difference? The difference is 5000 plus 4000, again it is 1000, right? So I'm getting 1000 irrespective of what the starting address is. So even though buffered and buffer are relative terms, right? So we are getting a constant or a fixed value. So this is why it is called as an absolute expression. Okay, I should say it as an absolute value, right? So this is what an absolute expression is. So relative expression, the value can change. Okay, and how do we form a relative expression? As I said, a relative expression is formed with relative terms, where the ruling is same as the previous case, as the absolute expression. Means relative terms should be there in pairs and they should have opposite signs, except one. That is the only change. Okay, so this is a relative expression. Okay, so how the assembler actually handles the expression is, it will keep track of the type of the expression, where it will note down whether an expression is a relative expression or a absolute expression. Now this information is going to be useful when the assembler is actually evaluating an expression. Okay, we also saw the concept of program blocks, where we are able to rearrange the statements inside the program itself in order to divide our program into separate blocks or segments. Okay, So if we want to divide our program into core segment or data segment or stack segment and a larger data block segment, so we can actually make use of this concept of program blocks and use the syntax that is specified over here, which is use followed by the block name, in order to group together a set of statements in our program to form a block. Okay, so we had seen this with an example. So we considered our previous program and we wanted to divide our program into three separate blocks. One was called as the default block, the other one was called as the C data block, the other one was called as C block. So how do we do that? We use the use assembler directive, right? So if we don't use assembler directive, by default all the statements would actually begin with the or they will actually belong with the default block. And then if you use assembler directive with the name of the program block, then following statements would be considered as a part of that particular program block. Okay, so using that strategy, what we did was we actually rearranged our code and we had made our program to look something like this. Now what is the advantage of this is, the advantage is that all the instructions are present closer to each other. Okay, that is one thing. And all the data that is required for those instructions are also present closer to each other. Only the larger area which was in between was moved towards the end. So this resulted in smaller displacement between the instructions, and as a result you can observe that in this program we have actually not used any extended format instructions. Okay, because the data and the instructions are closer to each other, it results in a smaller displacement. So as a result we need not use extended format instructions. Okay, so this is one of the advantage of using the program block concept. Now how the assembler is going to handle it, the assembler during pass 1 is going to use separate location counter for each program blocks, and then it's going to assign the address. And once the address is assigned, then the in the second stage or in the second pass, the values that have been calculated are going to be used during the assembly process and during the generation of the object program. Okay, so this is how the program block concept is going to work. So this you can observe here as we have an extra block number assigned along with the location counter value. So for example here, we start with block number 0, assign the values. Okay, and then when we come across use C data, we initialize a new location counter, we initialize a new block name, or we change the block number, and we assign the address as usual. Similarly here, once again a use assembler directive is encountered, so it's a new block. So obviously we will initialize the block number and start a new location counter of its own. So whenever we come across use assembler directive without a name, then obviously we know that it's a continuation of the previous block, which is the block number 0, and we are going to we are going to assign the address or return back to assigning the address using the previous value of the location counter. Okay, so same thing is here applied. So this process would go on until the end of the uh, program, and the assembler is also going to keep track of where the placements of the blocks are supposed to be. Okay, like as I said, there's a table that is missing out here. We will have block number, okay, the starting address of the block and the ending address of the block. Okay, and starting address and the ending address. Okay, so I believe you might have that. I hope you can see this. So this information is actually maintained by the assembler, right? So this is for putting together all the different blocks into the main memory as the diagram had indicated. I don't know if the diagram is here. Okay, so the same diagram that we are actually referring to. So it will keep track of the block name, the block number, the address and the length. Okay, so where exactly the default block has to stop. So default block number is 0. It should start at 0000 and the length is 0066. Now this information the assembler would actually get after the completion, right? For example, you can see here it started with 0000, right? And the address was assigned up to 0024. Then we had a continuation from 0027 to 004A. Then once again we had a continuation at 004D, and then at 0063 we had stopped, but at 0063 we had one R sub, so which is around 3 bytes. So 0066 is the last value that is assigned to this particular block. So this is what has been recorded here. So the length is 0066. Similarly, C data. Okay, so C data started here 0, 3 was assigned, then it started once again here 6. Okay, then there 1 byte, so 7, and then C data 7 started, and then there is 1 byte, right? So I believe it is 007. Okay, two of them are there. So 000A plus 1 byte. I believe it is B or something. Okay, yeah, it is B, right? Similarly, C blocks was 1000 bytes in length. We know that, right? So it was a large buffer area which was assigned 4096. So it is 1000 bytes in length. Okay. Now you add the starting address and the length. You will get the starting address and the length of that particular block. You will get the starting address for the next block. Okay, like for example, default block will start at 0000 and its length is 0066. So where I have to put the second block has to be after this. So 00 plus 66. So the starting address for C data will become 0066. Now from 0066 this will start and it will go on until 000B. So 66 plus B is 71. So this is where the third block is going to start. C blocks is going to start. Okay. So 0071 plus 1000. So if there was one more block, then it will start after 0071 plus 1000. So it's 1071. So that would be the starting of the next block. So this is how programs are actually put together. So even though you have divided your program into separate blocks, all those blocks are going to be grouped together. How they are going to be grouped together? They are going to be grouped together based on this table information. Okay, so this is how the program blocks are actually going to be put together. So we were also discussing about the concept of control sections. So control sections and how program linking is going to be done. So as I already mentioned, a control section is a program, is a separate program, or it's a separate entity that actually maintains its identity even after the assembly process. Okay, so what does it mean? It means that we can actually load and relocate these control sections or these programs independent of each other. So they may not be written in a single program, they can be written separately and they can be loaded and executed separately. So this is one of the advantage of using the control sections. Okay, now since they can be loaded anywhere, obviously we need to ensure that there is proper linking, and that's where we discuss about the concept of program linking between different control sections. Okay, now how do we create a control section? As I already told, we have to make use of the cset assembler directive, and this cset assembler directive will contain a name of the control section. Okay, before cset you need to mention the name of the control section. Okay, like you can see in this example, of course, the name of the program itself indicates a control section, so we need not specify that explicitly. But here you can see cset. Before that cset, we have specified the name of the control section. Okay, so this is how you divide your program into separate control sections. Right now, one of the issue that are supposed to be handled is that of external references. So, what do you mean by external reference? As I said, now there may be several control sections in your program that actually refers to a symbol that is not defined in that, but it is present in some other control section. Like for example, A and B are two control sections. and I have a value x, okay, that is not defined in this particular control section, but it is defined in B, but it is referred here. So these are actually called as external references. So one way that you are supposed to handle these control sections is how we are going to handle these external references. Okay, so this is one of the major tasks. So we define two terminologies here. One is called as external definition. The other one is called as external reference. So what do you mean by external definition? It is the statement in a control section names a symbol called external symbols that are defined in this particular section but may be used by other control sections. So what do you mean by this? Defined here but used somewhere else. Okay, so this is called as external definition. Okay, easy way to remember. What is an external reference? Okay, used here but defined somewhere else. Okay, so this is what external references. Okay, so in your program you need to specify that these are external references and these are external definition. Now why do you indicate these things? These things are required both for the assembler as well as the loader. Okay, because now the assembler's task is actually reduced. Reduced in the sense its task is no longer restricted to only the assembly process. Now it has to also serve with some information to the loader so that the loader actually loads the program properly with the information given by the assembler. Okay, so this information is required for both the assembler as well as the loader. So how do you specify the external references and the external definition? Okay, so external definitions are symbols that are defined in this control section and used somewhere else. So those are indicated with ext def. Okay, external definition. Then you have to mention which are the symbols that are defined here and used somewhere else. External references are actually specified using ext ref, external reference, and then you need to specify which are the symbols that are referenced from this particular control section. Okay, so external definition you will specify and external reference you are going to specify. Right. So you can observe in this example here we have defined several external definition. External definition means what? Those which are defined here but used somewhere. Okay, so just a second. Okay. Uh, yeah, so as I was saying, external definitions are specified using ext def. So in this particular control section, which are the external definition? What are the labels that are, what are the symbols that have been defined? Okay, so symbol defined are return address, length, buffer, buffend, and max length. Okay, but out of these, only buffer, buffend, and length, these three are referred in some other control section. Okay, so these three will become external definition. Okay, defined here, used here also, but they are also used somewhere else. Okay, so therefore here they are called as external definition, right? Now the second part, which is external reference. So external references are read record and write record. Okay, so as you can observe here, we have read record and we have write record. Okay, two references to write record and one reference to read record. Now remember that read record or write record has not been defined in this particular control section. So they are separate, they are present somewhere else. So therefore they become external references. Sorry, yeah, external references, and they have been specified. Okay, so this information will actually help the assembler to find out which are the external definitions and which are the external references. Okay, and they will be handled accordingly. Now, one more thing that you need to observe here is that all the external references are going to be addressed using extended format. Okay, because we do not know where they are going to be loaded. They can be loaded anywhere, so the displacement may be small also, the displacement may be large also. So obviously we can't trust on PC relative or base relative addressing mode, so we will not take any chance. So we'll simply put that we're going to make use of an extended format instruction in order to address this. Okay, so look into the second one. Then observe here once again, csect assembler directive specifies the name of the control section. Now the name of the control section also is an external symbol, okay, which we have used previously in case of read record as well as write record, because those two values are being used in an instruction. Okay, so here in this case of read record, we have no external definition, because defined here is only input, and input is not used anywhere here. Okay, or it is not used in any other control section. So obviously we don't have any external definition, but we have external reference. Okay, like for example, check here, uh, which is that buffer, right? So buffer and length, which were, and buffer and minus buffer, right? So both of them have been used. So all of these things are external references. Looking into the third control section, as you can observe, control section name is write record. That itself is an external symbol. And you can observe here also, there is no external definition, but there is external reference. Okay, we have got reference to length and we have got reference to buffer. Okay, so we have written these things. Now we shall look at how the assembler is going to handle it. Okay, now how does the assembler handle the external references? Okay, so just a sample instruction has been taken here at 0003, which is this instruction here. Okay, so this one 0003 jc loop, sorry, plus j sub read rd rec, so read record. So how does the assembler handle this? Suppose if read record value was given, it was easy for the assembler to assemble the instruction. But read record value is not known. Okay, because as I said, it will be loaded at runtime, and at runtime it can be assigned any value. So at the assembly time or during the assembly process, we do not know that information. So when we don't know that information, we obviously can't use it during the assembly process. So what the assembler does is, it will simply assume that all the external reference values are zero zeros. Okay, it will simply put value of 0000 for every external reference. Okay, however, what it is going to do is, it is going to generate a record. Okay, it's going to generate a record saying that whenever you find the value of this, okay, or whenever you load this particular control section or this particular external symbol, then you make the modification to where I have put 0. Okay, so it's something like, I don't know the value, so I will put 0, but it is telling the loader that when you find the value for this, you just add, wherever I have put 0, you just add the value that you have found. Okay, so this is how the assembler is going to handle it. So as you can see here, read record is an external symbol, so we simply put all zeros, because we don't know the address of that. We simply put all zeros for read record, which is an external symbol. So that's what has been mentioned. See, the read record is an external reference, so the assembler has no idea about where exactly read record is going to be handled or loaded, right? So what it does is, it will simply put the address value as 0, because it's using an extended format. It can give later the information that is required to make the necessary modifications. Okay, so this is how what the assembler does when it is using the concept of control sections. Now let us consider the second case. So that is case 1, how this type of instructions are handled. Okay, external reference. Case 2 is when we have external symbols used in expressions. Okay, like for example, at line 28, we had an statement called as max length word buffend minus buffer. Okay, now buffend is a external symbol. Buffer is also an external symbol. Okay, so let me show you where exactly it is. At line number 190. This is the line that I'm talking about. Okay, now remember this is read record control section, and read record control section has no idea where buffend is and where buffer is, because all of them are external references. Okay, and if you had observed here, buffer is an external reference, so extended format. Length is an external reference, so extended format. Okay, I hope you are getting the idea here. So how this expression is going to be handled? Once again, buffend value not known, buffer value not known, because the main control section can be loaded anywhere. Okay. So since I don't know the value, simply put 0000. Okay. So there are two external reference in this expression. So assembler simply inserts the value 0, and now it's responsibility to pass that information to the loader. See, that's why I said the assembler's job is actually reduced. Okay, it need not do anything. It simply needs to put 0 wherever external references are, and it simply needs to pass the information required for the loader to handle this. Okay, so loader will add the value when it comes across the value of buffend as well as buffer. Okay, so it will first add the value to the same location, and then it will subtract the value of buffer from that same location. Okay, now there is a third case here on line 107. Buffend and buffer are defined in the same control section, and the expression can be calculated immediately. Okay, like for example, in case of this main subroutine. So in case of main subroutine, you can observe the same statement is present, max length equated to buffend minus buffer. Okay, but here buffend and buffer are defined, so it can generate an object program. Okay, we can generate an object code for that. Okay, so this is the third case. So on line 107, which I showed you, buffend and buffer are defined in the same control section, and the expression can be calculated immediately. So directly you can put the value whenever the expressions are defined. If the expressions are not defined, put 0 for one of them. That's it. So as you can observe here, the object code has been generated for the previous program. See here, case 1, and similar to case 1, same type of instructions. All of them have 000 put in the address field. Okay, so buffer and minus buffer, obviously the value has to be calculated, so which is nothing but 1000. So this is equated to max length. So obviously you can see that this value is 1000. It is evaluated in this particular control section. When it comes to read record, you can see here, once again, whichever were the extended format instruction, all of them have been put as 0, because buffer value is not known to this control section. Length value is also not known to this control section. And as you can observe here, buffer and minus buffer, two expressions, they are also not available, right? So obviously all of them have been put as 0000. Now write record, same thing. So wherever we had external references, we have put 0. Okay, of course I think these are the only two instructions present here, so we have put 0 here. Okay, so now the object code has been generated. So now it's time to write the object code has been generated. Now it's time to write the object program. Okay, but before writing the object program, now we just need to look into what records we are supposed to have. So of course we will have the header record, of course we will have the text record, and of course we will have the end record. Okay, now we had seen previously that our assembler has one more type of record, which is called as the modification record. Now what this modification record does is it was supposed to add the starting address of the program to the symbol. Okay, now we will consider a different variation of this. Okay, we will assume that the modification record, okay, by default the loader is going to add the starting address of the program to wherever external references are being used. Okay, now along with that, we also need to pass few more information to the loader. Okay, so from the assembler to the loader, now more information is supposed to be passed, because now majority of the work is being done by the loader, not the assembler. Okay, assembler simply puts 0 and it will pass information that wherever I have put 0, you do this modification. Okay, what is the modification? The assembler has to tell. So that is where new set of records are going to be introduced. Okay, now along with the header record, text record, end record, okay, we will have additionally a defined record. Okay, a defined record, a refer record, and a variation of a modification record. So these three extra things are now being introduced into our object program. Okay, now let us look at each one of them individually. So what is this defined record? Okay, what is this defined record? So defined record would start with D. Okay, so it's a record for external definition. Then from column 2 to 7, it will have the name of the external symbol defined in this particular control section. And from 8 to 13, it will have the address, relative address. Okay, so relative address in the sense whatever the starting address of the program is. So relative address within this particular control section. Okay, and then from column 14 to 73 you will have the repeat information of column 2 to 13, okay, for other external symbols. Okay, what do you mean by this? I'll explain. External definitely 2 to 7, 8 to 13, just remember 2 to 7, 8 to 13, right? So how do we write the defined record? You look at the assembler directive extdef. Okay, what does it tell? It tells us something about external definition. So using this we will write the defined record. Okay, so first it will start with D. Okay, from column 2 to 7 it will have the name of the external symbol, I believe, right? It will have the name of the external symbol, right? It's correct. It will have the name. So what is the name? First external symbol, buffer. So write it. Okay, so write buffer. Then from column 8 to 13, I believe, right? So 8 to 13, you will have the starting address, or you will have the address of that particular symbol, right? So relative address within the control section, relative address within the control section. Okay, so this is the control section in which the symbol has been defined. Now within this control section, the relative address. So address starts at 0. So relatively to 0, what is the value of buffer? It is 0033. So you will specify from 8 to 13, 000033. I believe this is 8 to 13, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yes. Okay. So now from column 14 to 73, right, you will have the repeat of information from 2 to 13. So whatever you had done for this symbol, same thing you will repeat for other symbols. Okay, like for example, what is the other symbol here? Buffend. So I will write buffend. Okay, I'll write buffend, and following that I will write the starting letters of buffend. Where is buffend? Buffend is 1033. So I'll write it here, 001033. Okay, next I will repeat once again from 2 to 13, whatever is there I'll repeat, but for the next symbol, which is length. Okay, so I'll write it as length. What is the value of length? Value of length is 002D. So 00002D. Okay, am I done? Yes, right. I have written the defined record for the first control section. Okay, so whenever an object program for this is going to be generated, so defined record will contain this information. Okay, so that is about the defined record. I hope you have followed this. Now we shall look into the refer record. So what is the refer record? So refer record, simple, starts with R, column 1. From column 2 to 7, we will have the name of the external symbol that is referred in this particular control section. Okay, so we'll have the name, and then from 8 to 73, from 8 to 73, okay, you will have the name of other external reference symbols. Okay, so I'll just show you one more. For example, here we have an external reference, right? So how do we write an refer record? So write R followed by from 2 to 7. Okay, so from 2 to 7, I will have the first external symbol, which is length. Okay, so length. Okay, then you write the second one. That's it. Okay, buffer. from 8 to 73, you will have repeat information to buffer. Suppose for example, if I have one more reference, for example, XYZ is there, so I'll write it as XYZ. That's it. Okay, so writing refer record is very easy. Just write down whatever is specified in external reference. Got it? So now the next record, refer record. Now the modification record. Okay, it's a variation, of course, as I said. So first we shall have M. Okay, and then from 2 to 7 we will have the name of the the starting address of the address field to be modified, starting address of the field to be modified. Okay, so that you will specify. Then from 8 to 9 you will specify the length as usual, length of the address field to be modified in half bytes as usual. But now the addition comes. The addition is that from column 11 to 16, okay, from column 11 to 16 you will have the external symbol whose value is to be added or subtracted from the indicated field. So you will specify the name of the symbol also, which one you have to add, which one you have to subtract. Okay, so where is what does 10 specify? 10 specify whether you are supposed to add or subtract. Okay, 11 to 16 you will specify the symbol. Okay, like for example, let me go back here. Right, so I know that this field has to be modified, correct? So to this, I'm supposed to add what? I'm supposed to add the value of length. For example, if length gets loaded at 5000, okay, I'm just assuming. Previously, when I was assembling this this control section, I did not know the value of length. Suppose if I knew the value of length, I would have directly put here 5000. But that's not the case. We did not know the value of length. So it was put as 0000. Now we are supposed to generate a modification record for the same, so that when the value of length becomes available, I put that value 5000 here. Okay, so assuming that it's 5000 here, so I need to add this value 5000 to this location. So how do I generate a modification record for that? So this instruction is present at 0002. Okay, so as I said, whenever we are generating a modification record, we are going to skip one byte because the first byte does not change. Okay, so what is the starting address? So 000003. Okay, starting address is 000003. Why it is 003? Because instruction is at 2. I'll skip one byte. Okay, the opcode part does not change, so I'll skip one byte. So now it is 0003. Okay, so next I have to specify the length in half bytes. So of course this is an instruction, correct? So extended format instruction. So address field is around 5 half bytes because it is 20 bits. So 5 half bytes. Okay. Now I will specify what is the operation I'm doing. Say I'm adding or subtracting. Here I am adding. Okay. I should add the value of length, or the loader should actually add the value of length. So this is an information for the loader, correct? Modification record is an information to the loader so that it does this modification. So I will put plus, which indicates that you are supposed to add something. What you are supposed to add? You are supposed to add the value of length. Okay, you are supposed to add the value of length. Okay, so this is the modification record generated for this instruction. Similarly, how many instructions require modification? Let us check. Okay, what about this one? Does it require modification? Yes. So M, this is present at C. So obviously the next value is D. Okay, of course it is 5 half bytes. What I need to do? Need to add the value of buffer. So plus buffer. Okay, so all the extended format instructions, they will have this modification record. So let us check in the previous case. So this one will also have a modification record in a similar way that I mentioned. This one will also have a modification record in a similar way I mentioned. So clearing this out. This one also has a modification record. This one also, this one also. Okay, but look at a particular case here, which is this one. Okay, so here I did not know both the values. Buffend also I did not know, buffer also I did not know. So I just put 0 here. Okay, now for both of them I need to generate a modification record. So how the modification record is going to be generated? See, now these are not in, see, this is not an instruction, this is a data, correct? Or this is a variable or a symbol. So for this now M, okay, So observe, it is 28. Okay, previously I had skipped one byte. Okay, why I had skipped one byte? Because it was an instruction, and that instruction's opcode does not require any modification. But here, this is a data. So obviously, it will start at 000028 only. So the entire word may need to be modified. So therefore, 0028. Okay. Now to this location, for the how many half bytes? Check out how many half bytes are there. 6 half bytes are there. Okay. How 6 half bytes? Just check. Uh, 1 half byte, 2 half byte, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 half bytes. So this is one word, right? So 6 half bytes are present. One word contains 3 bytes. Sorry, yeah, 3 bytes, and 3 bytes contain 6 half bytes. Okay. Now to this location, first I will add the value of buffend or buffer. Sorry, buffend. Okay, because that is plus. So to this location, to this memory location, I will add first the value of buffend. So maybe buffend is 1000, for example, or okay, maybe it is 5000 or something. Okay, so first I will add 5000. Now to that same location, 000028, for the same half bytes, I have to subtract from it the value of buffer. Okay, so this expression has actually generated how many modification records? 2 modification records. Okay, so like this, the modification record is going to be generated by our assembler, and it is going to be given away to the loader for further processing. Okay, so as you can observe here, this is the control section copy, which is the main subroutine. So header record, define record has been given, refer record has been given, and as usual, all the text records. Okay, of course, all the text record contains 0 values here. Whichever had the external references, all of them have been put as 0000. You can observe here. And for these instructions, we have generated the modification records. Okay, so what modification record? Check this out. So 3 instructions are there. So all the 3 instructions have modification records. So first one we need to add read record, second one we need to add write record, third one also we need to add write record at different locations. So coming on to the control sections of read record. Okay, now as I mentioned earlier, the defined record is not there. Refer record is only present. So we have mentioned the refer record. Of course, the instructions contain all 0000, as you can observe here, this one, and I believe one more is there somewhere here. Okay, so somewhere over here we have one more instruction that requires modification. Okay, so at uh, 18 we have buffer to be added. So and then at 21 we have length to be added. Okay, which is this one, I believe. Yes, here. So length to be added. Then for the final one, we have 2 modification records. As we have mentioned here, it is for buffend minus buffer. So same location, first we need to add buffend, then same location we need to subtract buffer to get the value of 1000. Okay, so this is the control section for so object program generated for the control section. Write record. So once again, refer record is there. Text record, of course, for that particular control section. So marked with all 0000s wherever we do not have the values. Okay, then 2 modification records. So first one we are supposed to add length, and second one we need to add buffer. Okay, so assembler is going to generate the object program like this, and then it is going to pass it on to the loader. Now the loader knows when it is loading the program what modifications are supposed to be done. So it loads the text record into the main memory, then it looks into the modification record. When it looks into the modification record, it knows that at this particular address, whenever I find the value of length, I need to add this. So it will do that, and the program gets modified. Okay, so this is how the assembler handles the concept of control sections. Okay, now when it comes to handling expressions, as I already mentioned, buffer and minus buffer. So one thing that we need to keep track of is what type of an expression it is. Okay, we already know that there can be two different kinds of an expression. One is an absolute and another one is a relative expression. So whenever you are using the concept of control sections, just to be sure that it is an absolute expression most of the time. Why? Because if you use relative expression, then obviously it may result in wrong values. Okay, like for example, as you can check here, so this can be considered as legal in case of any control section because buffer minus buffer, they both are defined in the same control section. So obviously we know that irrespective of whether it's an external definition or an external reference, when I'm using both of them in a expression, they are going to give me a constant value. But if the terms are defined in separate control section, like for example, read record minus copy. Okay, so copy and read record, they can be anything. So it may not give us an absolute value. Okay, so this is one thing. So it might lead to wrong results. So because if read record is loaded at 5000 and copy is loaded at 2000, okay, something like this. So now the result is 3000. But assume that read record gets loaded next time at 8000. Okay, now I'm getting a different value. I cannot bank on this particular expression because it is made up of relative terms, which is not giving me an absolute value. So always when you are using expressions in your control sections, even though you are using relative terms, ensure that they always give you a absolute value. Otherwise, it will depend upon the assignment of address to those relative terms, and they may not give you the value that you are looking for. Okay, so this is how the control sections actually handles the sorry, this is how the assembler handles the concept of control sections and the expressions if defined in any of the control sections. Okay. The next concept that we are supposed to discuss is called as the design options for the assembler, where we look into what are all other options that are available for us to design our assembler. Like for example, right now we have a pass 2 or a 2-pass assembler, right? It's called as a 2-pass assembler. So this is one of the design that is currently available. So why it is called as 2-pass assembler, we have already seen. It makes 2 passes over the source program. Now, are there any other options? Can we reduce a pass and make it a 1-pass assembler? Okay, that is one of the option that is available. Or should we make an assembler that can go over our program multiple times, making it a multi-pass assembler? Okay, so these are the two extreme options that are available for an assembler to be designed. So we have to look into these concepts. So whether it's possible for us to design a one-pass assembler, or can we go to the other extreme and design a multi-pass assembler? Multi-pass assembler means which can go through our source program more than 2 times. Okay, so these are the two extreme design options that are available, which we are supposed to look into. Okay, so of course, time is up. So we shall look into that in our next session. Okay, just a second, I will take the attendance. Do you have any doubts meanwhile? Of course, no doubts, I believe, because I'm teaching so well, right? Hmm. Just a second, students. do not leave. I'm taking the attendance. Okay. So I will have taken the attendance. So I'll also share an attendance sheet with you, which you are supposed to uh, fill it. Okay. Uh, do fill that up with all the sessions that you have attended. I think I forgot to share it in the previous day. Fill that up as well if you have attended my previous session. Okay, of course, I will cross verify that with the attendance I have taken. Okay, so if you don't have any doubts, then I will close the session. So if you do have any doubts, then do contact me, uh, however means possible. Or if the doubt is still persistent, then you can ask in the beginning of the next session by dropping the message. Okay. So see you in the next session. I believe I will not be able to take a session afternoon. So I'll see you tomorrow. Okay. Thank you, students.